Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, slip into over an hour of eerie tales and whispered shadows, laced with soft rain and thunder, crafted to chill you and soothe you into sleep. Now close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness drift you away. And if these nightly whispers draw you in, stay with us for more haunting secrets. Jade Harper adjusted her headphones in her cramped Vancouver apartment, the hum of the city filtering through the window on a rainy April morning in 2025. At 32, she was a true crime podcaster with a modest following for her series Lost Voices, where she tackled unsolved disappearances with a mix of research and intuition. Her latest episode had stalled, listener numbers dipping, and the pressure to deliver something gripping gnawed at her. As she sifted through her inbox, a message from Shadowseeker87 caught her eye, its subject line stark: Silverpine, Oregon, July 15, 1985. The Caldwell siblings checked the photo. Her heart skipped. Silverpine was a name she'd heard in whispers from her late mother, a place tied to a childhood story of 3 missing kids. She opened the attachment, a faded Polaroid of 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, aged 7 to 11, smiling on a porch, the date stamped in the corner. The email continued. They vanished during a summer fair. No trace. Someone knows why. Start there. Jade searched online, her fingers trembling. The Caldwell case. Emily, 11, Sophie, 9, and Noah, 7, disappeared from Silverpine, Oregon, during a community fair in 1985. Their parents reported them missing after a fireworks display, but no bodies, no suspects, just a cold trail that faded into legend. The fairground was searched, witnesses vague, and the case closed in 1987, a mystery that haunted the Pacific Northwest. Jade remembered her mother mentioning a family friend in Silverpine, a connection she'd never pursued until now. She booked a flight to Portland, renting a car for the 3-hour drive to Silverpine, a sleepy town nestled in Oregon's forests, its main street lined with weathered shops. The air smelled of pine and damp earth as she arrived, the fairground now a vacant lot with rusted carnival relics. She checked into a motel, its neon sign flickering, and began her investigation. At the local diner, she met Clara Evans, an elderly waitress with silver hair, who remembered the Caldwells. "Sweet kids," Clara said, pouring coffee. "Last saw them near the Ferris wheel with a man in a trucker hat, tall, broad, gone by morning. Police didn't find him." Jade recorded her, the hum of the diner a backdrop, and asked about the family friend. "That'd be Margaret Hensley. She ran the post office then, lives out by the lake now." Jade drove to Margaret's cabin, a quaint house with a sagging porch, the lake shimmering beyond. Margaret, a frail woman in her 70s with sharp eyes, greeted her cautiously. "You're Ellen's girl," she said, recognizing Jade's name. She worried about those kids too. Jade explained her podcast, showing the photo, and Margaret's face darkened. "I saw them that night, arguing with a man, dark hair, foreign accent, maybe British. He drove off and they were gone. I told the cops, but they brushed it off." She handed Jade a yellowed note, found near the fairground days later. "They're safe with me. Don't look." Jade recorded it, her pulse quickening, a ransom hint or a lie. Back at the motel, she uploaded a teaser episode, The Caldwell Vanishing, her voice laced with intrigue, and posted it online. Responses trickled in, one from Shadowseeker87. "The man went to Cornwall, England. Follow the trail." Her mind raced. Cornwall, a new thread across borders. She researched, finding a 1990s missing persons case in Cornwall linked to a fair. 3 teens vanished, similar circumstances. The connection felt electric, a trafficking ring spanning decades. As she packed, a knock startled her. She opened the door to find a manila envelope, no sender, containing a newer photo of the Caldwell kids, older, in a strange room, dated 1990. Her breath caught, alive, moved, hidden. She locked the door, her heart pounding, and called the police, but the night held its secrets, the echo of their disappearance growing louder. Jade Harper sat on the edge of the motel bed in Silverpine, Oregon, the manila envelope trembling in her hands, the photograph inside a haunting revelation. The Caldwell siblings, Emily, Sophie, and Noah, older, their faces drawn, standing in a nondescript room. The date stamped 1990, 5 years after their disappearance in 1985. The anonymous sender had left no trace, but the email from Shadow Seeker 87 echoed in her mind. The man went to Cornwall, England. Follow the trail. Her heart pounded. The children had been alive, moved across borders, possibly part of a trafficking ring that spanned decades. She recorded her thoughts, her voice shaky. April 18, 2025, 11:47 p.m. I've received a photo of the Caldwells, alive in 1990. The tip leads to Cornwall. I'm heading there tomorrow. She barely slept, the faded Polaroid haunting her dreams, and by dawn, she was on a flight from Portland to London Heathrow, a 14-hour journey with a layover in Chicago. The plane's hum was a backdrop to her racing thoughts as she reviewed her notes on her laptop. The Cornwall connection pointed to a 1990s case. 3 teens, Rose 15, Liam 14, and Tara 13, vanished during a fair in St. Ives, Cornwall in 1996, their disappearance eerily similar to the Caldwells. No bodies, no suspects, just rumors of a man with a British accent, possibly the same one Margaret Hensley had seen in Silverpine. Jade landed in London, rented a car, and drove 4 hours to St. Ives, the coastal town's narrow streets lined with stone cottages, the air sharp with the scent of salt and fish. She checked into a small inn overlooking the harbor, its walls creaking with the wind, and began her investigation. At the local library, she met Oliver Tate, a retired detective in his late 60s with a weathered face and a sharp memory, who'd worked the St. Ives case. I listened to your podcast, he said, his Cornish accent thick. Those kids, Rose, Liam, Tara, disappeared after a fireworks show, just like your Caldwells. Witnesses saw a man, tall, dark hair, scar on his neck, driving a van. We called him the Fairground Man. Never caught him. Jade recorded him, her pulse quickening. Any link to Silverpine? She asked. Oliver nodded, pulling a file from his bag. A tip came in 1997. A tourist claimed the same man worked fairs in Oregon in the 80s. We sent it to the Americans, but they didn't follow up. Oliver handed her a journal, its pages brittle, found near the fairground after the teens vanished. Belonged to a worker, Eddie Blake, he said. He wrote about a delivery that night. 3 packages to a Canadian buyer, via a ship from Falmouth. Never found Eddie, he vanished too. Jade flipped through the journal, her fingers tracing cryptic entries. 3 for the north, $10,000 each, no questions. She recorded the pages, her voice urgent. This is trafficking, kids taken, sold, moved across borders. The Caldwells might have been the first. Oliver agreed, his eyes grave. The Fairground Man, he's the key. If he's still alive, he's dangerous. That evening, Jade walked to the St. Ives Fairground site, now a grassy park, the sea crashing below. She recorded the scene, her voice soft. April 20th, 2025, 7:32 p.m. I'm standing where Rose, Liam, and Tara disappeared. The journal confirms a network. Cornwall was a stop, Canada the next. As she spoke, a shadow moved near the cliffs, a man tall watching her. She froze, her recorder capturing her gasp, and dialed Oliver, but the man vanished into the dusk. Her heart raced. Someone knew she was here, following the same trail the Fairground Man had left. Back at the inn, she uploaded a new episode, The Cornish Connection, detailing the journal and the St. Ives case, her voice laced with urgency. Downloads spiked, listeners commenting with theories, one from Shadow Seeker 87. Eddie Blake's alive, Vancouver. Find him. Her breath caught Vancouver, her home, the next lead. She packed her bag, the journal secure, and booked a flight for the next day. As she prepared to sleep, a loud crash echoed from her room's door. She grabbed her phone, dialing Oliver, and peered through the peephole. Nothing. Opening the door, she found her bag open, her notes on the Caldwells gone, a message scrawled on the wall in red marker. Stop digging or you're next. Her recorder captured her scream as the lights flickered, the inn's silence deafening, the echo of the fairground louder than ever. Jade Harper stood frozen in the doorway of her room at the St. Ives Inn, the red marker message. Stop digging or you're next. Stark against the wall, her notes on the Caldwell siblings stolen in the break-in. The journal from Eddie Blake, the fairground worker, remained safe in her bag, its cryptic entries about a trafficking network burning in her mind. Her recorder captured her shaky breaths. April 21st, 2025, 1:14 a.m. Someone broke into my room in Cornwall, took my notes, knows I'm onto the Caldwell's trail. She called Oliver Tate, the retired detective, who arrived with local police, their flashlights sweeping the hall. "This isn't random," Oliver said, his voice grim. "You've rattled someone big." The tip from Shadow Seeker 87 echoed. Eddie Blake was alive in Vancouver, her next lead. She booked the earliest flight back, a red-eye from Heathrow to Vancouver, the 9-hour journey tense with anticipation. Landing in Vancouver on April 22nd, the city's gray drizzle matched her mood as she drove to her apartment, the journal clutched tight. She locked the door, her security system's red light a small comfort, and opened the journal, its brittle pages filled with shorthand. 3 packages north, $10,000 each CV pickup. She spent hours decoding, cross-referencing with online forums, and cracked it. CV meant Canadian Vancouver. The pickup point for the trafficked children, likely including the Caldwells and the St. Ives teens. Her recorder captured her realization. This network moved kids from Oregon to Cornwall to Canada, a pipeline active for decades. Jade posted a teaser episode, The Vancouver Link, her voice urgent. The Caldwell's trail leads home, to Vancouver, where Eddie Blake might hold the key. Downloads surged, listeners flooding the comments with tips, one from a user named Survivor1979. "I escaped them in '96, Vancouver drop-off. Find me, I'll talk." Jade messaged the user, arranging a meeting at a quiet coffee shop near the waterfront, her recorder ready. The survivor, a woman named Lena Carter, arrived, her face lined with years of trauma, her hands trembling as she spoke. "I was 14, taken from a fair in Seattle," Lena said, her voice low. "They moved me through England, then here. A man with a scar on his neck. He ran the show. I escaped during a handover, hid for years." Jade recorded every word, her heart pounding. Lena's description matched the fairground man Oliver had mentioned, the tall figure with a scar. Lena handed her a sketch of the man, drawn from memory, dark hair, scar-jagged, eyes cold. "He called himself Raven," she said. "Had a partner, a woman, cold as ice. They sold kids to buyers, families worse." Jade thanked her, promising anonymity, and returned home, the sketch a vital clue. She scanned it, emailing it to Oliver, who replied, "Matches our suspect, possible alias Paul Ravenwood, known in trafficking circles, vanished in the 2000s. Jade searched Paul's name, finding a 2010 article. Paul Ravenwood, a Vancouver businessman, suspected of illegal activities, never charged, now a philanthropist running a youth charity. Her stomach twisted, a cover hiding in plain sight. That evening, Jade drove to Paul's charity office, a sleek building downtown, her recorder on. Paul, a man in his 60s with graying hair and a scar on his neck, greeted her with a polished smile. "A podcaster, he said, his tone smooth. "What brings you here?" She played coy, mentioning the Caldwells and her investigation, watching his reaction. His smile faltered, his hand brushing the scar. "Never heard of them," he lied, his voice tight. "Old cases, best left alone." She recorded his denial, her instincts screaming. He was the fairground man, or knew him. As she left, she noticed a woman watching from a corner office, blonde, sharp-eyed, her gaze icy. Jade snapped a discreet photo, her gut telling her this was Paul's partner. Back at her apartment, she uploaded the episode, The Raven's Shadow, detailing Lena's story and Paul's reaction, her voice charged with discovery. Comments exploded. Listeners recognized Paul, some calling him a saint, others suspicious. One tip stood out. That woman in the photo, Elena Markov, his business partner, ex-Russian intelligence, dangerous. Jade's blood ran cold. Elena, the cold partner Lena mentioned, part of the network. She emailed the sketch and photo to Oliver, who confirmed, "Elena's a known associate of trafficking rings, be careful." As she prepared for bed, a faint click sounded in her living room. She grabbed her recorder, its light on, and crept out, her heart racing. A small device blinked under her coffee table, a listening bug, planted while she was out. She recorded her discovery, her voice a whisper. "They're listening. Paul and Elena know I'm close." She called the police, who swept the apartment, confirming the bug's sophistication. Professional, likely Elena's work. They removed it, but the violation lingered, her sanctuary tainted. She double-locked the door, her recorder still running, when a shadow passed her window, a figure tall, scar visible in the streetlight, watching her. Her scream echoed on tape as the figure vanished, the network's reach tightening around her. Jade Harper stood in her Vancouver apartment, her recorder trembling in her hand as she stared at the spot where the listening bug had been removed. The police sweep confirming its sophisticated design. Professional, likely planted by Elena Markov, the ex-Russian intelligence operative tied to Paul Ravenwood. The shadowy figure she'd seen outside her window, a tall man with a scar matching Paul's description, had vanished into the night, leaving her with a chilling certainty. The trafficking network responsible for the Caldwell siblings' disappearance in 1985 was still active, and she was in its crosshairs. She recorded her thoughts, her voice a mix of fear and resolve. April 23, 2025, 11:09 p.m. They bugged my apartment. Paul and Elena know I'm onto them. I can't stop now, not when I'm this close. She called Oliver Tate, the retired Cornish detective, updating him on the bug and Paul's scar. That's him, Oliver said, his voice tense. Paul Ravenwood, the fairground man. If Elena's involved, you're dealing with a network that's killed to stay hidden. Jade nodded, her mind racing. Lena Carter's testimony, the journal from Eddie Blake, the photo of the Caldwells alive in 1990, all pointed to Paul as the orchestrator, with Elena as his enforcer. She needed more evidence, something concrete to tie Paul to the Caldwells and the St. Ives teens. She emailed the Vancouver police, sharing her findings, and met Detective Nadia Singh, a sharp-eyed officer in her 40s who'd worked trafficking cases. Paul's a philanthropist now, Nadia said, her tone skeptical. Runs a youth charity, but we've had suspicions. Money laundering may be worse. Let's dig deeper. Jade and Nadia visited Paul's charity office again, this time with a warrant to search financial records. Paul was absent, but Elena Markov greeted them, her blonde hair pulled back, her blue eyes cold as ice. What's this about? She asked, her voice clipped with a faint Russian accent. Nadia presented the warrant, her demeanor firm. We're investigating trafficking links. Your charity's funds are under scrutiny. Elena's smile was thin, her gaze flicking to Jade. The podcaster again. Stirring trouble. Jade recorded the exchange, her pulse quickening as they searched the office, finding encrypted files on Paul's computer. Nadia called in a tech specialist who cracked the encryption, revealing transactions from the 1980s. Payments labeled Caldwell shipment, dated 1985, to a Cornish account, then forwarded to Vancouver. Jade's breath caught. It was proof, tying Paul directly to the siblings' abduction. She photographed the records, her recorder capturing her whisper. We've got him. Paul orchestrated the Caldwell's trafficking, moved them through Cornwall to Canada. Elena watched, her expression unreadable, but as they left she leaned close, her voice a hiss. You're playing with fire, Harper. Back off. Jade held her gaze, her recorder still on, and replied, I'm not stopping until the Caldwells get justice. Nadia escorted her out, her voice low. She's dangerous, we'll monitor her, but you need protection. Jade agreed, accepting a police detail outside her apartment, but the threat lingered, Elena's words a dark promise. That evening, Jade uploaded a new episode, The Raven's Ledger, detailing the financial records and Paul's link to the Caldwells, her voice charged with triumph. Downloads soared, listeners commenting with outrage and support, some sharing sightings of Paul at recent charity events. One tip stood out from Survivor 1979. Lena Carter. Paul's at a gala tonight downtown. He'll slip if you confront him. Jade called Nadia, who agreed to a sting operation at the gala, a black tie event at a waterfront hotel. They arrived, Jade in a borrowed dress, her recorder hidden in her purse, Nadia blending in with the crowd. Paul was there, mingling with donors, his scar stark under the chandelier light. Jade approached, her voice calm but firm. Paul Ravenwood, I know about the Caldwells. Your ledger proves you trafficked them in '85. His smile froze, his hand brushing the scar, and he leaned close, his voice a growl. You're a fool, Harper. You'll never find them. He turned away, but Jade recorded his admission, her heart racing. Nadia signaled for backup, ready to arrest him, when Paul slipped through a side door, disappearing into the night. They followed, finding his car in the hotel lot, but as Nadia approached, a deafening explosion rocked the scene. Paul's car erupted in flames, the blast knocking Jade back, her recorder capturing her scream as debris rained down, the fire illuminating the night. Jade Harper stumbled back from the fiery wreckage of Paul Ravenwood's car. the explosion's heat searing her face as flames roared in the Vancouver hotel parking lot, the gala crowd screaming in the distance. Her recorder, still in her purse, captured her ragged breaths and the chaos. April 24th, 2025, 9:52 p.m. Paul's car just exploded, right after I confronted him about the Caldwells. Detective Nadia Singh grabbed her arm, pulling her to safety behind a concrete barrier, her voice sharp over the sirens. "Stay down, Jade. This was no accident." Debris rained around them, the acrid smell of burning metal thick in the air, and Jade's heart pounded. Paul's admission, "You'll never find them," was the last thing he'd said before vanishing into the night, only to meet this fiery end. Firefighters arrived, dousing the blaze, while Nadia coordinated with the police, her face grim. "Bomb squad's on the way," she said, her eyes scanning the crowd. Someone wanted Paul silenced, maybe Elena. Jade nodded, her mind racing. Elena Markov, Paul's cold-eyed partner, had been at the gala, her threat. "You're playing with fire, Harper." Now a chilling prophecy. But Paul's death, if he was truly gone, meant the trail to the Caldwell siblings might be severed. She checked her recorder, the audio intact, and emailed it to Nadia as evidence, her hands trembling. Forensics later confirmed no body in the wreckage. Paul had escaped moments before the blast, his survival a dangerous unknown. Jade returned to her apartment, a police detail stationed outside, and uploaded a new episode, The Raven's Inferno, detailing the explosion and Paul's admission, her voice raw with urgency. Downloads surged, listeners commenting with shock and theories, one from Survivor 1979. Lena Carter. "Paul's alive, I know his tricks. Meet me, I have more." Jade arranged to meet Lena at a secluded park near the Fraser River, her recorder ready, Nadia on standby for safety. Lena arrived, her face pale, her sketch of the fairground man clutched tight. "Paul faked his death before," she said, her voice low. "In '98, after I escaped, he staged a crash, keeps him off the radar. He's running now, but he'll be back." Lena shared her full story, Jade recording every word. "They took me from Seattle, moved me through Cornwall, then here," Lena said. "Paul ran the operation, but Elena, she was the brains, the enforcer. She'd kill anyone who talked. I saw her once in a warehouse handing over kids to buyers, families, criminals, whoever paid. The Caldwells, they were sold to a couple in Vancouver. I heard their names mentioned years later, but I don't know where." Jade's breath caught. Emily, Sophie, and Noah sold, possibly still alive. Lena handed her a photo, faded but clear. A younger Elena, blonde and stern, with a man matching Paul's description, standing outside a warehouse dated 1995. "That's them," Lena said. "Find that warehouse, it's near the docks." Jade thanked her, promising protection, and drove to the Vancouver docks with Nadia, the photo in hand. The area was a maze of rusted shipping containers and abandoned buildings, the air heavy with salt and oil. They found the warehouse, its windows boarded, a faded sign reading "Raven Exports," Paul's cover. Inside, dust coated the floor, but Jade spotted a locked filing cabinet, its lock rusted. Nadia pried it open, revealing records of child placements, hundreds of names, dates, and buyers, including an entry. Caldwell E. S. N. 1985, sold to M. and L. Thompson, Vancouver. Jade recorded the find, her voice trembling. "We've got their buyer, the Thompsons. We can trace them." As they photographed the files, a shadow moved outside, a woman, blonde, her silhouette unmistakable. Elena Markov stepped into the warehouse, a gun in her hand, her eyes cold. "You're persistent, Harper," she said, her accent sharp. "But this ends here." Nadia drew her weapon, her voice steady. "Drop it, Elena. You're under arrest." Elena laughed, her gun unwavering. "You think you can stop this? Paul's gone, but the network lives. The Caldwells are a memory. Let them go." Jade recorded, her heart pounding, and whispered, "Where are they, Elena?" Elena's smile was cruel. "You'll never know." Before Nadia could act, Elena fired, the shot echoing as Jade dove behind a crate, her recorder capturing the chaos. Nadia returned fire, hitting Elena's shoulder, and the woman fled, her blood trailing on the floor. Nadia called for backup, her voice urgent, but Elena vanished into the dock's labyrinth, her threat lingering. Jade retrieved her recorder, her hands shaking, the files secure, but Elena's words haunted her. The network lived, and the Caldwell's fate hung in the balance, closer yet still out of reach. Jade Harper crouched behind a crate in the abandoned Vancouver warehouse, her heart pounding as the echo of Elena Markov's gunshot faded. The bullet lodged in the wall inches from her head. Detective Nadia Singh's return fire had hit Elena's shoulder, her blood staining the floor, but the ex-Russian operative had fled into the dock's labyrinth, her chilling words. The network lives, hanging heavy in the air. Jade's recorder, still running, captured her shaky breaths. April 25, 2025, 3:17 p.m. Elena attacked us at the warehouse. She's gone, but we've got the files. Nadia called for backup, her voice urgent, securing the files from Raven Exports, including the entry. Caldwell E. S. N. 1985, sold to M. and L. Thompson, Vancouver. Jade clutched the photo of Elena and Paul, her resolve hardening. The Caldwells were closer than ever. Back at the Vancouver police station, Nadia sent the files for analysis, her face tense. The Thompsons, Michael and Laura, will track them, she said, her fingers tapping the desk. But Elena's on the run, and Paul's still out there. We need more. Jade nodded, her recorder capturing their plan. The blood Elena left behind was sent for DNA testing, a potential link to the network's broader operations. While waiting, Jade researched the Thompsons, finding a Michael and Laura Thompson who'd lived in East Vancouver in the 1980s, now deceased, but with a surviving son, David Thompson, 45, a mechanic in Surrey. "You might know something," Jade said, her voice hopeful. Nadia agreed, arranging a visit, while Jade emailed the photo of the Caldwells, dated 1990, to a forensic lab, requesting age progression and DNA extraction from the Polaroid's edges, a long shot but worth trying. They drove to Surrey, a suburban sprawl south of Vancouver, the rain relentless against the windshield. David Thompson's auto shop was a squat building with oil-stained floors, the hum of machinery loud as they entered. David, a wiry man with graying hair, wiped his hands on a rag, his eyes wary. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice gruff. Jade explained her podcast, mentioning the Caldwells, watching his reaction. His jaw tightened, his gaze flickering. "Don't know them," he said too quickly. Nadia showed him the file entry, her tone firm. "Your parents bought 3 kids in '85, Emily, Sophie, Noah Caldwell. Where are they?" David's face paled, his hands trembling. They raised 3 kids, adopted, but they never said where they came from. They called them Anna, Ben, and Clara. They're grown now, moved away, Seattle, I think." Jade recorded his confession, her heart racing. Anna, Ben, and Clara could be Emily, Sophie, and Noah, renamed alive. David gave addresses, last known in Seattle, and Jade shared the lead with Nadia, who contacted the Seattle PD for assistance. Back at the station, the DNA results from Elena's blood came in. A match to a deceased Russian trafficker, Ivan Markov, her brother, killed in a 2005 sting operation in Toronto. Ivan's profile linked to unsolved abductions across North America, including the St. Ives teens, confirming the network's reach. "Elena and Ivan ran this with Paul," Nadia said, her voice grim. "But there's no direct DNA on the Caldwells yet. The forensic lab called the Polaroid yielded trace DNA, degraded but viable, matching a familial profile in a genealogy database. A distant cousin of the Caldwells, confirming the kids in the 1990 photo were Emily, Sophie, and Noah, alive 5 years after their abduction." Jade recorded the breakthrough, her voice trembling. "They survived, moved to Vancouver, raised by the Thompsons. We need to find Anna, Ben, and Clara." She uploaded a new episode, The DNA Echo, detailing the DNA match and David's revelation, her voice charged with hope. Downloads soared, listeners commenting with support, some offering Seattle contacts, but others were darker, threats from anonymous accounts. "You'll pay for this, Harper." The threats escalated that evening. Jade returned to her apartment, the police detail outside, her security system active, when her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You're next. Raven flies free." Attached was a photo of her car, parked outside, taken moments ago. She called Nadia, her voice panicked. "They're watching me, someone's here." Nadia arrived with a team, sweeping the area, but found nothing. They inspected her car, discovering the brake lines cut, a deliberate sabotage meant to kill. Jade recorded the discovery, her voice a whisper. "They tried to kill me, the network's closing in, but I won't stop." She moved to a safe house, her resolve unshaken, the Caldwells' new identities a beacon in the darkness. but the threat of Paul and Elena looming larger than ever. Jade Harper stood in the Vancouver safe house, her recorder capturing the tension as she stared at her car's sabotaged brake lines through the window, the police detail outside securing the area. The text from an unknown number. "You're next. Raven flies free." And the photo of her car, taken moments before the discovery, confirmed the trafficking network's reach, led by Paul Ravenwood and Elena Markoff, who'd stop at nothing to silence her. Her voice trembled as she recorded. April 26, 2025, 10:43 p.m. "They cut my brakes. Paul and Elena are closing in, but I've got leads on the Caldwells, now Anna, Ben, and Clara, possibly in Seattle. I can't stop now." Detective Nadia Singh, her ally, coordinated with the team, her face grim. "We'll trace the text, but we need to act fast. Elena's wounded, Paul's on the run, and they're desperate." Jade shared the Seattle addresses David Thompson had provided, and Nadia contacted the Seattle PD, who located Anna, Ben, and Clara, now in their late 40s, living under their adopted names. "They're safe," Nadia said, her voice softening. "They confirmed their identities, remember bits of Silverpine, but not much. The Thompsons raised them well, kept them hidden. They'll testify if we catch Paul and Elena." Jade recorded the update, her heart swelling. Emily, Sophie, and Noah alive, ready to help. But the network's ongoing threat loomed, and Jade proposed a plan to Nadia. "We set a trap, use my podcast to lure Elena out. She's injured, reckless. We can take her down." Nadia agreed, and they devised a sting operation at a fake charity event, a youth fair revival, in Vancouver's Stanley Park, advertised as a fundraiser Paul's charity had sponsored in the past. Jade recorded a teaser episode, The Raven's Reckoning, announcing the event and hinting at new evidence on Paul and Elena, her voice charged. "Join me at Stanley Park tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'm revealing the truth about the Caldwell's abductors." Downloads spiked, listeners buzzing with anticipation, some warning her of danger, others offering support. Nadia's team set up undercover officers around the park, surveillance cameras hidden, and Jade wore a wire, her recorder in her bag, ready to confront Elena. The evening arrived, the park alive with fake stalls and a small crowd, the scent of popcorn mingling with the ocean breeze. Jade stood on a makeshift stage, her voice amplified through a microphone. "This is Jade Harper, live at Stanley Park. Paul Ravenwood and Elena Markoff trafficked the Caldwells and countless others. I have proof, and I'm calling them out." Her words were a dare, her eyes scanning the crowd. A figure emerged from the shadows, Elena, her shoulder bandaged, her blonde hair tucked under a cap, a gun concealed in her jacket. Jade's wire transmitted to Nadia, who signaled the team to close in, but Elena moved fast, grabbing Jade from behind, the gun pressed to her side. "You think you can end this?" Elena hissed, her voice low. "Paul's untouchable, and you're done." Nadia's voice crackled through the wire. "Now!" Officers swarmed, tackling Elena, her gun skidding across the grass as she fought, her strength surprising despite her injury. Jade broke free, her recorder capturing the chaos, her voice a whisper. "We've got her, Elena's down." Nadia cuffed her, reading her rights, but Elena spat, her eyes blazing. "Paul's already moved on, new kids, new buyers. You'll never stop him." The crowd dispersed, the operation a success, but Elena's words chilled Jade. Paul was still trafficking, his network active. At the station, Elena refused to talk, her lawyer stonewalling, but Nadia searched her belongings, finding a burner phone with recent calls to Mexico. "Paul's there," Nadia said, her voice tense. "We'll coordinate with Mexican authorities." Jade recorded the update, her mind on Elena's taunt, new kids, new buyers. She revisited the warehouse files from Raven Exports, noticing a recent entry. 3 packages, Mexico drop-off, April 2025. Her stomach twisted. The network was still operating, children at risk. Nadia organized a task force, but Jade insisted on joining, her podcast a platform to expose the truth. As they prepared, a police officer approached, his face pale. "We found a van near the park, abandoned, but we heard something inside." Jade followed, her recorder running, her heart racing. They opened the van, the stench of fear heavy, and a child's cry echoed from the darkness. A young girl bound, her eyes wide with terror, a new victim of Paul's network, proof of Elena's warning. Jade's voice broke as she recorded. "There's a child here, Paul's still trafficking, and we have to find him." The girl's cry lingered, a haunting call to action, the network's cruelty laid bare. Jade Harper knelt beside the open van in Stanley Park, Vancouver. The young girl's cry piercing the night as police lights flashed around them, the air thick with tension on April 27, 2025. The child, no older than 10, trembled in Detective Nadia Singh's arms, her wrists raw from ropes, her eyes wide with terror. Jade's recorder captured the moment, her voice breaking. April 27, 2025, 8:15 p.m. We found a girl in a van, Paul Ravenwood's latest victim, proof his trafficking network is still active. Nadia handed the child to paramedics, her face grim. She's in shock but alive. We need to know where she came from. Jade nodded, her heart heavy. Elena Markov's arrest hadn't stopped Paul, and the network's reach extended beyond Vancouver, the Mexico lead from Elena's phone burning in her mind. At the police station, the girl, identified as Mia Lopez from a missing persons report in Tijuana, Mexico, spoke through a translator, her voice faint. "A man with a scar took me from my school a week ago," she said. "He said we were going to a fair, but he locked me in a truck with others. They took them away, left me here." Jade recorded her testimony, her pulse quickening. Mia was a new victim, but others had been moved south. Nadia sent Mia's DNA for analysis, linking it to a trafficking ring active in Mexico, and cross-checked the van's plates, tracing it to a rental company used by Paul's charity. "He's covering his tracks," Nadia said, her tone sharp. "The Mexico calls on Elena's phone. Paul's there, organizing a new drop." Jade uploaded a new episode, The Van's Cry, detailing Mia's rescue and the Mexico connection, her voice urgent. "Paul Ravenwood is trafficking again, fleeing to Mexico with more children. We must stop him." Downloads soared, listeners flooding the comments with outrage, some offering tips on Paul's movements, one from Shadowseeker87. "Paul's in Tijuana, spotted at a warehouse near the border. Hurry!" Jade shared the tip with Nadia, who coordinated with Mexican authorities, securing a joint task force. They flew to Tijuana the next day, a 4-hour flight, the desert landscape stark as they landed, the city's chaos a stark contrast to Vancouver's rain. In Tijuana, Agent Carlos Rivera, a lean man in his 50s with a weathered face, met them at the airport. "We've tracked Paul to a warehouse district," he said, his Spanish accent clipped. "He's been moving kids through fairs, same pattern as your Caldwells. We've had eyes on him, but he's slippery." They drove to the district, a maze of rusted buildings and narrow alleys, the air heavy with dust and diesel. Inside the Target warehouse, they found evidence of recent activity: blankets, water bottles, a ledger with names and dates, including M. Lopez and 3 others, marked for a Mexico City drop-off, dated April 28, 2025. Jade recorded the find, her voice tense. "Paul's still at it. 3 more kids moved today. We're close." Forensics confirmed Mia's DNA matched a strand on the ledger, linking her to the group, and Rivera's team identified the other 3 as missing children from California, Texas, and Ontario. Proof of Paul's transnational network. Nadia called Seattle PD, confirming Anna, Ben, and Clara, formerly Emily, Sophie, and Noah, were willing to testify, their memories of Paul's scar corroborating Mia's account. Jade felt a surge of hope. The Caldwell's voices would help, but Paul's escape loomed. Rivera's surveillance spotted Paul leaving the warehouse, tall and scarred, slipping into a black SUV, its plates obscured. "He's heading to the drop-off," Rivera said, rallying his team for a pursuit. They trailed the SUV through Tijuana's streets, the chase tense as Paul's driver wove through traffic, horns blaring. Rivera's team intercepted at a checkpoint, forcing the SUV to stop, but Paul leapt out, firing a handgun, bullets pinging off a patrol car. Officers returned fire, and Paul fled on foot, disappearing into a market crowd. Jade recorded the chaos, her voice urgent. "Paul's running. He shot at us, escaped into the market." Nadia and Rivera searched, finding the SUV empty, the back compartment holding 3 terrified children. 2 boys and a girl, aged 8 to 12, their wrists bound, their eyes hollow. Jade's heart broke as she recorded their rescue, paramedics rushing in, the kids' cries a stark reminder of the Caldwell's past. Back at the station, the children confirmed Paul as their abductor, their stories matching Mia's: fares, trucks, a scarred man. Rivera traced the SUV's rental to a false identity, but a phone inside revealed a call to a number in Mexico City, active hours ago. "He's planning another move," Rivera said, his voice grim. Jade uploaded an update, the Tijuana rescue, her voice resolute, but as she locked her recorder, her phone buzzed, a video call from an unknown number. She answered, and Paul's scarred face filled the screen, his smile cold. "You think you've won, Harper? I've got new buyers, new kids. Your family's next if you don't stop." The call ended, leaving Jade staring at the blank screen, her blood running cold as his threat echoed, a shadow across borders. Jade Harper sat in the Tijuana police station, her phone trembling in her hand as Paul Ravenwood's video call ended, his scarred face and chilling words. "Your family's next if you don't stop," etched into her mind. The screen went black, but the threat lingered, a shadow stretching across borders on April 28, 2025. Her recorder captured her shaky voice. "Paul just called. He's in Mexico, threatening my family. We rescued 3 kids, but he's planning more." Agent Carlos Rivera and Detective Nadia Singh stood nearby, their faces grim as they reviewed the call log from the SUV's phone, confirming Paul's last contact was in Mexico City, hours ago. "He's moving fast," Carlos said, his voice tense. "We'll track him, but he's dangerous, desperate." Jade called her brother Ethan in Vancouver, her voice urgent. "Ethan, take Mom and get somewhere safe. Paul's threatened you." Ethan, a calm software engineer, assured her he'd moved to a friend's cabin, but the fear gnawed at Jade. She recorded her resolve. "I can't let him win, not after the Caldwells, not after Mia and the others." Carlos coordinated with Mexico City's federal police, securing a joint operation, while Nadia liaised with Interpol, Paul's transnational crimes now a global priority. The 3 children rescued in Tijuana, 2 boys and a girl from California, Texas, and Ontario, gave statements, their descriptions of Paul matching Anna, Ben, and Clara's memories, the former Caldwell siblings ready to testify. Jade felt a surge of hope. Their voices would seal Paul's fate, but she had to catch him first. They flew to Mexico City, a 1-hour flight. The sprawling capital's lights a stark contrast to Tijuana's chaos. Captain Sofia Morales, a fierce officer in her 40s with a scar across her cheek, met them at the airport, her team ready. "We traced the call to a slum on the city's edge," Sophia said, her English flawless. "Paul's hiding there, planning a drop-off tonight, new buyers, new kids." They drove to the area, a maze of shanties and narrow alleys, the air thick with smoke and the hum of generators. Surveillance confirmed Paul's presence in a boarded-up house, his scarred silhouette visible through a cracked window. Jade recorded the scene, her voice low. April 29, 2025, 6:32 p.m. "We've found Paul. He's here in Mexico City, about to move more children." Sophia's team surrounded the house, snipers on rooftops, officers in plain clothes blending into the crowd. Jade stayed back with Carlos, her recorder running, her wire transmitting to Nadia. Sophia gave the signal, and officers breached the house, shouts echoing as Paul fired a handgun, bullets splintering the door. A firefight erupted, Jade's recorder capturing the chaos, her voice a whisper. "They're engaging. Paul's fighting back." The gunfire stopped, and Sophia emerged, dragging Paul, cuffed and bloodied, his scars stark under the streetlight. He glared at Jade, his voice a snarl. "You'll never save them all, Harper." In interrogation, Paul broke under pressure, Sophia's tactics unyielding. "I took the Caldwells in '85, he admitted, his voice cold. "Sold them to the Thompsons, good money, quiet couple. They're alive, but you'll never fix what I've done. I moved hundreds, Cornwall, Vancouver, Mexico. Buyers everywhere, even now." Jade recorded his confession, her heart sinking. He'd confirmed Anna, Ben, and Clara's identities, but his network was vast, its tendrils still active. Sophia pressed, "Where are the new kids?" Paul smirked, his eyes glinting. "Already gone, shipped out this morning to a buyer in Belize." "You're too late." Jade's stomach twisted, but Sophia traced the shipment through Paul's phone. A cargo ship, docked at Veracruz, set to sail for Belize. They raced to the port, a 5-hour drive, arriving at dawn, the ship's horn blaring as it prepared to depart. Sophia's team boarded, finding 5 children in the hold. 3 boys and 2 girls, aged 7 to 11, bound and terrified, their cries echoing as officers freed them. Jade recorded the rescue, her voice breaking. "We saved them, 5 more kids, but Paul's network is still out there." The children confirmed Paul as their abductor, taken from fairs in Mexico and the USA, their stories a haunting echo of the Caldwells. Back in Mexico City, Paul was charged with trafficking, kidnapping, and murder, his confession tying him to dozens of cases, including the St. Ives teens, whose remains were later found in a Cornish quarry, a cold case closed after decades. Jade uploaded a new episode, The Mexico City Confession, detailing Paul's arrest and the rescues, her voice a mix of triumph and sorrow. Downloads soared, listeners commenting with support, some offering leads on other missing kids, but the victory felt hollow. Paul's network lived, buyers still free. As she prepared to return to Vancouver, Sophia approached, her face pale. "We found something in Paul's house, a message for you." Jade followed her to the evidence room, her recorder on, and Sophia handed her a note, scrawled in Paul's handwriting. "You'll never outrun the Raven's shadow." A gunshot rang out from the holding cells, echoing through the station, and officers rushed in, shouting. Paul had bribed a guard, stolen a gun, and shot himself, his body slumped, a final escape from justice. Jade recorded her shock, her voice a whisper. "Paul's gone, killed himself, but his shadow remains." The note's threat lingered, a dark promise of more danger, the network's echoes stretching far beyond his death. Jade Harper stood in the Mexico City police station, her recorder trembling in her hand as the echo of Paul Ravenwood's gunshot faded. The man's lifeless body slumped in the holding cell, his note. "You'll never outrun the Raven's shadow." A chilling final taunt. The date was April 30th, 2025, and the air was thick with the aftermath of his suicide. Officers rushing past as Captain Sophia Morales briefed her and Detective Nadia Singh. Jade's voice shook as she recorded. "Paul's dead, shot himself, but his network's still out there, and that note, it's a threat." Nadia placed a hand on her shoulder, her face weary. "We've got him on record, but his death complicates things. The children we saved are safe, and the Caldwells are ready to speak. Let's finish this." The 5 children rescued from the Veracruz ship, 3 boys and 2 girls from Mexico and the USA, were reunited with their families, their tearful reunions captured by Jade's recorder, her voice soft. May 1st, 2025, 9:12 a.m. They're home, but Paul's network stretched across borders, hundreds more to find. Sophia's team traced the ledger from Paul's warehouse, linking it to buyers in Belize, Brazil, and even Japan, a trafficking ring spanning decades, its roots tied to Ivan Markov's operations in the 1990s. Elena Markov, wounded and imprisoned, refused to cooperate, her silence a wall, but her brother Ivan's DNA confirmed her role, closing cold cases from Toronto to Cornwall. Jade uploaded a new episode, The Raven's Fall, detailing Paul's confession and the rescues, her voice a mix of triumph and urgency, downloads soaring past 100,000, listeners pledging to help. Jade returned to Vancouver, a 6-hour flight, her mind on Anna, Ben, and Clara, formerly Emily, Sophie, and Noah Caldwell. She met them in Seattle, a 2-hour drive south, at a safe house arranged by Nadia. Anna, 51, a nurse with kind eyes, hugged her, tears streaming. "I remember fairs, a man with a scar," she said, her voice soft. Ben, 49, a carpenter, nodded, his hands rough. "We were taken, raised by the Thompsons, but they loved us, never knew the truth until now." Clara, 47, a teacher, clutched Jade's hand. "We want to help, stop this from happening again." Jade recorded their stories, their resilience a beacon, and they agreed to testify, their DNA matching the 1990 Polaroid, closing the 1985 case. She uploaded the Caldwell's voices, their courage inspiring listeners, some sharing leads on other victims. Back in Vancouver, Jade visited her family, Ethan and their mother, safe at the cabin, her relief palpable. She locked her apartment door, the security system's red light a constant guard, and started a new podcast series, Echoes of Freedom, vowing to track down Paul's remaining buyers. But the shadow remained. 2 weeks later, a package arrived, no return address, just a small box with a USB drive. She plugged it in, her laptop screen flickering, and a distorted voice rasped. "Paul's gone, but the Raven's network lives. You're marked, Harper." The video showed footage of her apartment building, then cut to a fairground in an unknown city, children's faces blurred, a new operation unfolding. Her blood ran cold. Paul's death hadn't ended it, and the note's threat was real. Jade called Nadia and Sophia, who launched an investigation, tracing the USB to a dark web server, its origin untraceable. "It's a warning," Nadia said, her voice tense. "Paul's lieutenants are still out there. Elena's people may be others." Jade recorded the update, her resolve hardening. She joined a task force with Interpol, her podcast a platform for tips, listeners forming a global network of sleuths. One evening, as she edited an episode, her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I see you, Jade. The fair never ends." Attached was a photo of her at her desk, taken through the window, the angle suggesting a nearby rooftop. She ducked, calling the police, who found no one, the threat a ghost. The story ends with Jade at her desk, the city alive outside, her recorder on. She speaks into the mic, her voice steady. "Paul Ravenwood is gone, the Caldwells are free, but the Raven's shadow lingers. Trafficking networks thrive in silence. I'll keep fighting for Mia, for Anna, Ben, and Clara, for every lost voice." This is Jade Harper signing off, but never stopping. She locks her door, the security light glowing, her eyes on the night. A podcaster who'd faced the darkness and survived. Her family safe, but her mission unending. The echo of Fair's a haunting call to action.